B-K-H-S, Idaho. Go. All right, very good. What? Good evening. I'm Father Jerry Funk, Rector of St. John's Cathedral, and with Father Caleb Vogel, together we serve as in the vocation ministry for the Diocese. Born in 1930, Theodore E. McCarrick is a member of the greatest dance generation in the United States. If you wish to dance, you may. He was ordained a priest of the Archdiocese of New York City in 1958. After earning a doctorate in sociology from the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C., Father served at the same university as chaplain, dean of students, and director of development. In 1965, Father McCarrick was named president of the Catholic University of Puerto Rico in Ponce. After 4 years in this position, he returned to the Archdiocese of New York and served first as the Archdiocesan Associate Director of Education and then as Secretary to Terence Cardinal Cook. In 1977, Pope Paul VI named Father an auxiliary bishop of the Archdiocese of New York. He served principally in East Manhattan and Harlem. In 1981, Pope John Paul II named him the first bishop of Metuchen, New Jersey. 5 years later, in 1986, he was named Archbishop of Newark, New Jersey. And on January 3rd, 2001, he was installed as the fifth Archbishop of Washington, D.C., a position he held until his retirement in May 2006. Pope John Paul II named him a cardinal on February 21st, 2001. Cardinal McCarrick has served as chair of numerous committees for the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, including domestic policy, international policy, migration, and aid to the Church in Central and Eastern Europe. He has also served on the administrative, doctrine, laity, Latin America, and missions committees. He presently serves on the board of directors of Catholic Relief Services. On the level of the Universal Church, Cardinal McCarrick serves on the Pontifical Council for Promoting Christian Unity, Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace, Pontifical Council of the Pastoral Care of Migrants and Itinerant Peoples, and the Pontifical Commission of Latin America. Cardinal McCarrick speaks 5 languages: English, Spanish, French, German, and Italian. His language skills have served him well in his work and ministry for the Church as an advocate for human rights and to survey humanitarian needs. This work has made him a world traveler who visits the People's Republic of China, Cuba, Saudi Arabia, Vietnam, the Philippines, South Korea, Rwanda, and the countries of Eastern Europe. And so now he comes to Idaho. He's with us. It's a great pleasure to have him here with us. And so it is my brothers and sisters gathered, it is my honor and joy to present to you His Eminence Theodore Cardinal McCarrick.
As you can see, he's also become very short. Mr. Mike, your words to your people were very beautiful and very moving, and they certainly touched my heart, and I think they touched the hearts of all. You have had for 15 years here in Idaho an extraordinary shepherd, a man who loves the Lord, a man who loves you, and a man who has accomplished so many things. And during all this time, he was, during at least 10 years of it, he was the one who brought the, whatever wisdom the bishops have, sometimes not too much, to the Catholic Charities USA, which is the overall group that represents all the work with the poor, all the work with the needy, all the work with the people who have nothing throughout the United States. They found the right man. They found a good pastor, a shepherd, a man who loves the people. I have received great Idaho hospitality from him and from all those with whom I had the privilege of meeting over the last few hours since I arrived this morning. It's a guy who, once before I was in Idaho, many years ago, even in the pre-bishop lifetimes. So I'm sure these are much more exciting times with Bishop ICC. So I'm happy to be back here. I think that expression, that motto, generosity beyond measure, is how you define the Idaho hospitality of Bishop Mike Driscoll. And I'm really honored, very honored to be here. I wish he were 50 years younger, because I think he would continue to do the extraordinary work that he's doing now, and what a blessing that has been. Bishop Elizondo, I said to him as he was leaving, I said, "You're not going to hear all the nice things I say about you." And he said, "Write them down." He didn't say that. But you know, in today's world, in the government of our country, it is so hard to get a lot of good things done. I'm not criticizing, well, I am criticizing, I guess, but I think I'm telling it like it is. And he was the apostle of immigration reform. And unceasingly, untiringly, and wisely has worked so hard to change this broken system of immigration in our country, in our time. And never giving up, always being there with a smile, with a story, with an enthusiasm. And I'm sorry that he can't hear me say this, because I am so proud of him being his brother, the bishop, and I'm so proud of what he's done in our country. And I pray that the work that he has established over these years as chairman of the Committee on Migration in these difficult times, that this work will bear fruit before too long. And when it does, I will know who one of the great architects of it is. My dear brother priests and deacons, my dear sisters in consecrated life, and in a special way, I want to greet Lamar. That was just there's no word for it. It was a stupendous celebration. It wasn't a performance, because she wasn't performing. She was living with us her own faith. She was asking us to join in her own lively, exciting, musical, harmonious, generous faith. And I pray that many more of us, me starting first, will learn how to do that, how to show in so beautiful a way this great faith that God has given to us. I'm sorry that all those Galileo have left me, but I will catch them tomorrow. They don't realize that. They think that they have gotten away from my talk tomorrow. We will see. They may not come tomorrow, so we'll see. We will see what happens. Dear brothers and sisters in Christ, according to the program, you want me to tell you how blessed you are. You want me to tell you how challenged you are. You want me to tell you how important you are. And I do that gladly because it's all true. I want you to know, and you know it already, I want you to know how wonderful it is that God has called you to Catholics. You could have been anything. You know, as we go through life, we meet so many people. I guess the majority of people we are Catholics because the majority of people are not Catholics anyway. But how wonderfully, strange, miraculously, God chooses some of us and gives us this extraordinary gift of being a Catholic. And I want to just talk about that for a little while. I don't know if there's a hook. Remember the old vaudeville days, you get a hook? They haven't told me about it yet, but I'm going to be watching in case it gets to the chancellor, controls the hook. So I'm going to watch her, see if she moves to that hook. Question is what I don't know. But if I don't want to preach to you because I know you get preached to by great priests and by great pastors and by very eloquent people, but I just want to remind you how much God must love you. That He brought you into His own family, that He brought you into His own household, that He gives you all these extraordinary things. Yeah, I think especially of the line in the Old Testament, in the book of Numbers, where the people of Israel are upset with God. He has called them out of the persecution really, of Egypt, where they could not, so many things they could not do, where they had to be slaves to make bricks for the cities of the Pharaoh, where they were not able to do their own thing, not able to really educate their children, not able really to take their chances becoming leaders and rulers of Egypt. And so finally God delivers them through the ministry of Moses. And you know that story so well, I don't have to repeat that to you. But then when they get into Egypt, when they get out of the populated parts of Egypt where they had been living and working, and they cross the Red Sea in that miraculous way, they find themselves in the desert. And God lets them be there because He wants to develop them. He wants to challenge them. Like you do with your children sometimes. You could give them everything they wanted, but that wouldn't be the right thing. And so you give them what they need, and then you challenge them to develop their ability to accept the rest. That's what God is doing to the people of Israel, to us, because they are our ancestors in faith. And one day they're in this desert area, and they are very annoyed. They're looking back at Egypt and they're saying, boy, oh boy, we had, really when you look at it, we had great Egypt. We had all the food we wanted. They talk about the flesh pots of Egypt. There must have been much meat on the tables in the desert. And so they're hungry. And they don't have the water they want. The sun is up there. And they don't want to work in the day because they're so tired. And they're really hurting. And we certainly can't blame them because this is terrible. They were in their own houses in Egypt. They were persecuted, that they didn't have all the opportunity to do what they wanted to do, but they were safe. They were working hard and they were safe. The Lord pulls them out of there and pulls them into the deserts. And they are hungry and they don't have beer and pizza and good stuff like that. And so they are now going to Moses and saying, hey, what's going on? Why does God hate us so? And they ask that wonderful question. Why did you, to God, they asked to Moses, but really they're asking to God, why did you bring us here? Why did you bring us here? And of course, the answer is in the mystery of God's love. The answer is in that wonderful challenge that God gives us as He gave them to grow. He doesn't want them just to be, He wants them to grow. He doesn't want them just to be present, He wants them to be holy. He wants them to understand the wonder of being part of His family. He's made of His family. He's taken them out of Egypt, taken them miraculously. He's saved their lives. He's given them all kinds of opportunities. And they are missing the extra meat on the table. And they don't realize what extraordinary gifts He has given them. And so they say to Him, why did you bring us here? And you know, that's the question I want us all to ask today. Why did you bring us here? All of us now, I don't know whether they're Idahonians, I don't know what you call them. But all of you know, why did you ever say to God, why did you bring us here? Sometimes you go through all kinds of difficulty, you go through illness, or what is worse, sometimes you go through the illness of a loved one, and you say, you know, why? What is this all about? Why did God give me these challenges? Why did He give me these sufferings? Why did He give me these defeats? Why did He give me this frustration? And every single one of us at some time in our lives says that to God. Oh, Our Lady never did. Maybe some of the great saints never did. But I think a lot of the great saints did too. You know, I'm a storyteller, not like our mother, but I'm a storyteller. You got to forgive me once in a while. I will move off my main thing to tell a story, and I think of them as I go. And this one, you know, the story of Saint Teresa is talking about the saints accepting everything from God very lovingly. Saint Teresa, the great Teresa of Avila, went from place to place, reforming the convents. They were at one time in Spain of those years, all the nuns had hired help. You know, and there was no poverty, there was no sacrifice. And Teresa knew that this was not what religious life should be. And so she went from place to place and told them, you know, and it really was tough on the sisters, and many didn't like her at all. And one day she's going, and it's terrible weather, and a storm is coming down, and the horses were skittering, and they are up in the hills going from one city to another. She was going to talk to different convents, and the carriage makes too wide a turn and goes off the road and goes tumbling down the hill. And everyone is drenched and dirty and probably hurt a little too. And St. Teresa says to the Lord, thank you for doing this. I'm going to go to this convent a mess. I was all dressed to go. I was going to do this great thing for you. And now I'm dirty, I'm filthy, I'm smelly, and I have to do this. Why do you do this to me? And the Lord said to her, this is how I always treat my friends. And you know Teresa's answer? That's why you have so few of them. So, you know, so the saints sometimes, let's go back to it. They say, okay, enough of this now. But here we are. God has put us here in Idaho. He's put us here in this diocese. He's put us here with a wonderful shepherd, with a lot of wonderful people, but with pain and sorrow sometimes. As a Catholic, it's not always easy. There are some things that you and I have to say, wait a minute, we don't believe that. This is what we believe. We believe what the gospel teaches. We believe what the gospel tells us to believe. We believe this because God has revealed this very old prayer of the old act of faith, who can neither deceive nor be deceived. That's who we believe. And we're going to stay with that for the rest of our lives. And some people are going to get very annoyed at us because we don't want to believe what they want to believe. Some people are going to hate us because we are following the standard that we believe God gave us. And sometimes we might say to God, why did you bring us here? Why did you bring us here? This is in a certain sense, Idaho is mission country. There aren't the majority of Catholic people. And you have to continue to preach who you are. And I'm not just talking to priests and sisters and deacons. We all have to preach. But most of us have to preach with our lives. That's harder. It's easy to preach with your lips, with your mouth. It's easy to write a letter to the editor, but to live up to that. It's easy to say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But when somebody looks at you and says, you're not doing it, are you? You say that I should do it, but you're not doing it. Why did you bring us here, Lord? This is hard. It's a hard place to be. But he brought us here. And of course we know that we know from Scripture, and we know from our catechism. He brought us here because he loved us. And because he had a job for us to do here in Idaho. I had a job to do in Latin America. I had a job to do in New Jersey, New York. But my life is in a job. But your life is a job too. It is not just the priest and the sister and the brother who is expected to do things. It is not just those extraordinary, generous people who work for the church. It's everybody. And that's not easy. Why did you bring us here? And of course, he brought us here because he loved us. And it is, he gives you the church. And the church is not just beautiful statues and beautiful music and beautiful poems. It's a beautiful God. That's why he brings you here. Because St. John Chrysostom, one of the great fathers of the Oriental Eastern Church, used to talk about, and in fact he was in the Riviera not too long ago, as we celebrated his feast day last week. John Chrysostom used to say, we are too much involved with golden vestments and not enough involved with golden priests. We have a lot of golden vestments and wooden priests. I could go on beyond that and say, we have a lot of golden things in our church. And a lot of us Catholics are not striving to be golden. We're not striving to be what God wants us to be. We're not striving to be the saints that God calls us to be. They used to yell at John Paul II, St. John Paul II. They used to yell at him and say, he's making too many saints. But what he was trying to do, and I had the privilege of knowing what he was trying to do, is to make all of us realize that saints are not just the bishops. Saints are not just the wonderful religions who found communities. Saints are mothers and fathers of families. Saints are young people who know that they're called to holiness. Saints are soldiers and sailors and marines who fight in different places and risk their lives because there's something to fight for and to save and help other people. There are saints there. You, every single one of you, is called to be a saint. Every single one of you. Lord, don't look down. I'm called to be a saint. I was talking to Bishop Alessandro earlier, and he said, because we were talking about bishops' long service, I'm a priest, 56 years. I'm a bishop 37 years. avocado, 14 years. And then the next question is, how many years you were saved? Big 0. And that's, so that it's great to be a preacher, wonderful, what a blessing. Great to be a bishop because you can do so many things for God's people. But even great to be a saint. I worked for a saint, Cardinal Cook, who Jerry mentioned. I was his secretary for 7 years. He was a saint. I've managed the whole virtue. And I lived with him for 7 years. I never heard him say a mean word about anybody. Imagine that. Couldn't say the same about me. But a man who knew who he was and who knew why God called him. Why God called him where he had to be. And so God has done that for all of us. He has made it possible for every single one of us to be saints. And that's what the church is all about. The church is here to make us saints, to give us the help to be saints. And that's what you have to realize. When you say, gee, it's tough to be a Catholic. Yeah, okay. I can't say that. I'm a sinner, that's why I know it very well. But if you accomplish this, this is why God called me. I don't want to belabor that, but this is why God called me. And how did he call me here? What did he give you? He gave you this gospel. He gave you this Holy Scripture. He gave you the Psalms. Oh, I hope you read the Psalms. Because I hope someday when you go, when you're down or when you're up, whatever, that you take the Psalms and you read them and don't do what Americans do. Right? I have a lot of nephews and nieces, and I once said to one of my little nephews, I said, you should read the gospel. He said, I do. I said, how often do you read it? He said, no more, I finished it. That's what he's a real American. Okay, yeah, I got to go. Where'd you go? Okay, I did that one. What do you want me to do now? And with the Psalms too. Priests do that. Dear brother priests. Well, I'm worse than you are, but maybe you're not that far. But maybe some of you do what I do. You get tired. Oh, I have to finish because the game is going on. I have to read through the Psalms fast. And then when I get up, I get up at 5. And so but what happens is these last few days I've been watching the news because I'm in the Near East so often, and I know the people that it breaks my heart what's happening. So my tendency is to take a shower, shave, get dressed, turn on the TV, turn on the news program. And when I do that, it means I get linked into my chapel. And I go faster through the Psalms. And I lose so much. I really should have brought the Psalms here tonight. Reading that to you would have been much more than what you're going to get from my talk tonight. Because God has given us this extraordinary literature. And he's given us this extraordinary church. We're not alone. You say, why did you bring me here? God says, you're not the only one I brought here. Why did you make me a Catholic? You're not the only one I made a Catholic. This is a family I brought you into. And it's my family. God will say this. My family. When we were little, our parents made us do some terrible things. Go to bed early, do our homework, wash behind the ears, all those things. And we did it, and we're better because we did it. We learned it. But we need to be family. And in the church teaches us to wash behind our ears in its own way. The church teaches us to do our homework. The church teaches us to become responsible people. Why did you call me here? That's why. When we say to others, as the people of Israel did. Why did you call me? So they give us the scriptures. And he gives us the sacraments. You know, sometimes we take the sacraments for granted. What makes us really different from our brother Christians, brother and sister Christians? It's the sacraments. You know, they have the scriptures. They pay more attention to them than we do very often. They don't have the sacraments. Or they may have, please God, they may have baptism, which brings them into this family. This is why we have to love them, and we have to encourage them to come all the way into this family, which is the church. And all the sacraments that he gives us. And gives us the gospel, gives us the sacraments, and most importantly, he gives us himself. Gives us himself. Well, what does that mean? It's an extraordinary gift. Jesus was with the apostles day after day after day. And they woke up in the morning, he was there. Maybe even making the coffee or whatever they were. When they went to bed at night, he was finishing his prayers. All day they were with him. And now he's gone. He's gone as far as his physical presence in the human nature. But is he with us? Oh. He's with us in so many ways. If Valmar was here, I should have said, okay, how many ways is he with us? How many ways is he with us? We would come, we'd be talking all night. He's with us with his grace. He's with us with his love. He's with us with his consolation. You can go on, you can talk all night about how Jesus is with us. But the most wonderful, mysterious way he's with us is what? In the Eucharist. He has chosen two of the most fragile elements in life. A piece of bread that crumbles, a cup of wine that becomes sour. He's taken these two things that are so common, and he said, I'm going to be there. You're drinking wine and you're eating bread. I'm going to be there. I'm going to, in some wonderful way that you will never really understand till you get to heaven, in some wonderful way, he is here with us in these fragile things. You know that my brother priest will know, when you break the bread, you're always afraid they're going to have big crumbs around you. You know that Jesus is in this bread. You try to not to be dumb about it, but you try to make sure that you don't get any large crumbs around. This is into this fragile, breakable form is God. Is God. And in a drop of wine. There's a wonderful, you get this, forgive me, I do this. There's a wonderful line in St. Thomas's great hymn to the Eucharist, where he says, it's on my chalice. I see it every day. Cuius unus silva salvum facere. The wine which becomes the blood of Christ. One drop alone could save the world. Cuius unus silva, one drop of this wine. Salvum, mundum salvum facere, could save the whole world. And this is this wine which you can spill. I know that the awful feeling. I have never done it myself, as far as I remember. I've never done it. But sometimes your brother priest, thoughtlessly or without any, but noses up the heart and showers over, and the precious blood is spilled. And Jesus knows it's going to happen. And he knows that some terrible people are going to come and violate and desecrate his body and blood. But he wants so much to be with us. I'll take that risk, he said. I'll take that risk. Even if this piece of bread crumbles, that I have made through the words of the priest, my body. And even though this cup of wine is spilled out, that I have made my blood. He's given it. Why has he given it to us? Because he wants to stay with us always. This is why are we Catholics? Why did you bring me here? Huh? Because not only will he be present in the readings, and all the more present if we read it well and thoughtfully. Not only is he present in the sacraments, which are these means of grace that can change our lives. I have heard confessions and I have seen people go out of the confessional totally renewed. I've come out of the confession myself totally renewed. I want to say something about Pope Francis because there are now millions of Pope Francis stories because he's I'm going to say such a character. Well, in a sense, he is. He's this extraordinary character that God has given to the Church. But talking about confession, his first homily after he was elected, he was elected on Tuesday. And he had Mass with the Cardinals on Wednesday. He just went to St. Mary Major and prayed to Our Lady. And then on Thursday they Mass for the Cardinal electors. And then the following Sunday, he wanted to offering Mass is an extraordinary gift. And it's like a longing when you don't do it.